Well, first I wanted to make a show with the creative team that would be very uplifting because we needed at that time to have something uplifting, and I said, okay, it's important that when people leave the chapiteau, the big top, after the performance, they think everything is possible, and to be very optimistic about life because we have a lot of reasons to be. So I researched about the invisible energy of electricity that led me to the second half of the 19th century where everything was happening. So there was the invention of the gramophone, so you could immortalize the voice of a singer or the instrument performance of amazing musicians. It was the development of the railway system, the telegraph, you could communicate with someone at a very large distance. So a lot of things were possible, and people were very believing that there was no limit to humans' imagination and creativity. So that's why I positioned the show in that era of humanity. It happens to be also the golden age of magic, because people could believe that, oh, this woman is really levitating because yesterday I saw somebody listening to a gramophone and I could believe of the voice of Caruso or whatever. So that's why, and this is such a beautiful era, and aesthetically also it's so rich. And so the style of the show is steampunk, but as you know, steampunk is rooted in the Victorian era in England. But at Cirque du Soleil we like to mix things and to hybrid things, so it feels really unique. So what we're doing is a steampunk era rooted not in the Victorian England society, but rather in the Parisian 1900 World Exhibition in Paris. So it gives you like a genuine steampunk, but has a different flavor. So that's why I think we really feel good. At the beginning of the creative process, we always gathered, all the creatives and myself, and we exchanged some photographs of our art piece that we like, related to the theme, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. And I had a collection of photographs in sepia. And together we all went like, oh wow, we never had a show with the color palette in sepia. And what's great in sepia is that black and white will give you like, okay, maybe it's the 30s, the 20s, the 40s. Sepia, we don't know. And that timeless, not clearly identified era was very, very rich, because when you create a show at Cirque du Soleil, hopefully the show will tour for 15 years, maybe more. So, for example, when I was writing Kurios, I had to think, okay, it has to be universal, it has to please people in Brazil, people in Eastern Europe, people in everywhere on the planet. And it has to be relevant in 10 years' time. Now, when I started to write Kurios, I realized that 10 years before, there was no iPhone. There was a lot of things that did not exist, so I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years, but what I know is that humans will be humans. We want to gather together and nurture the hope that they have for all the potentials of humanity. So that sepia color helps to convey that. It's not a message, it's more like a wish, I would say. It's a very good question, because I come from theater. I did 10 years of theater before working at Cirque, but then I had 4 or 5 years of casting where I listened. I learned to listen, to look at the artist and to work with acrobats. And then I did events for another 4 years. So now it's, like a violin player, you bring the violin player in orchestra, he's going to play violin, right? I work with acrobats. So I translate the story and the concept into an acrobatic language, and it's very, very different. You can be on the high wire. To me, it's the equivalent of to be or not to be. But you cannot fake it, because you really are 40 feet in the air, and your life, like life and death, are present. So I am a huge fan of acrobats. It influenced a lot my way of thinking, my way of telling stories, and everything we do when we really link with acrobatics is different. The way you do costume is different, the way you use the sound is different, and the way you paint the floor is different. So that's why I'm a huge fan of circus people, especially at Cirque du Soleil, because there's a humbleness. The show is the star, and I get a lot of attention, but it's not about me. And even the acrobats, you can be the best juggler in the world, like Gabrielle in the show. he knows that you cannot just have juggling for 2 hours. He needs the contortionist, and everybody needs everybody. This is, at times of war, right now, it's so refreshing and so comforting to see people getting together and focusing naturally on what makes us all brothers and sisters, not the differences of politics and the different parliaments of the world, but who we are as humans. And I think circus arts have this capacity beyond theater, dance, and opera, I must say, because it speaks directly to our reptilian brain. When we see another human in peril, we instantly connect. And the ritual of circus is that, oh my God, he could fall. Oh, she could drop something. And so we care. It's a big stimulus for empathy. I like to look at the audience, especially in this show, before and after. And after, I see more empathy. It's really healing a lot, especially after pandemic. This is why, people come in big numbers, because we need this as humans. We need to see what brings us together, not the differences. We know the differences, and it's good to see that we're together and that we're linked. You need sometimes to have something taken away from you to realize how precious it is. And I think live performances are not important in the society. They are essential. Otherwise, people go mad. So it's important as a society that we tell stories to each other, that we go to museums, but live performance, I think we realize it's very, very important. The performers, when they are on stage at Cirque, they cannot think about something else. They're so incarnated in what they do. And especially when you're in a big top like that, because it's 260 degrees, you cannot hide anything behind your back. Everybody sees. So I invite you to experience, as a former actor, first time I stepped on the stage of a big top, you feel so energized and you feel naked in a good way, so that you have to be honest, you have to be generous with the audience, you cannot hide anything. And that's the power of that kind of stage. It's a good point, because we were born in the streets. And in the streets, people were not planning to see your show. They were just walking, and you had to grab their attention. And then, because they would stop, because they were walking to go to the supermarket or to the daycare, but you had to stop them by doing something interesting. And you don't have your press kit, you don't have your resume, you just have what you are right now, and it has to be relevant for the person in front. And once that person has stopped and other people have stopped, then you have to nurture that relationship. It's not about you, it's not about glorification of who you are. It's about making something that's truly entertaining for them and that's very interesting and make them joyful and more alive with more hope. After that, if you're generous enough, they'll be generous and they will put money in your hat. Street performance is the only type of performance where the audience pays after they've seen the show, and it changes the whole relationship. So I think this is why we were born in the street and we kept that way of thinking. So we're very generous. We want everybody to be generous with the audience. What they can expect when they come in Cirque du Soleil Kurios, it's so strange because the answers changes every day. But to me, today, I'm probably influenced. It's like they will be welcome in a family, in a second family. They will feel at home. They will feel safe. They will feel appreciated in all their diversities. They will feel at home. And I just wanted to say that when we created the show in Montreal, one thing that made me very proud is that Drew, who used to be the head of security, came to me after like a few days and he said, like, we have a new problem. I said, what? He said, people feel so good because of the environment, the set design, the light. They feel so good that they don't want to leave. And as security people, we have to ask them to leave. Like, we've never had this problem to that intensity before. So when you come to Cirque du Soleil Kurios, you'll feel at home.